They thrilled us, terrified us, and gave us memories we will never forget. But now they are gone. In 2024, theme parks around the globe shut various attractions, from record breakers to old classics. In this video, I'm going to cover 10 of those attractions that you can no longer experience. Could your favourite be next? Right, we're going to start with the most obvious one, and that is, of course, Kingda Ka. Now, this was the tallest and fastest coaster in the world, a record that was due to lose in 2025 when Falcon's Flight opens in Six Flags Qiddiya. However, nonetheless, it did hold that crown right up until the very end. There does seem to be a bit of a trend here. Intamin hydraulic launch coasters seem to be on the way out. They are difficult to maintain, they are expensive to run, and many think that they have had their day. Which does beg the question, with other attractions such as Stealth and Rita in the UK, could they be disappearing soon? Six Flags Great Adventure did not do a particularly great job of this. It was known for quite some time that this ride was on its last legs and it was going. In fact, it was the YouTube community that kind of told people to get out there and get their final rides. I'm kind of disappointed because I was due to visit the park next year. Well, I am visiting the park next year. I was due to ride this, and clearly I will no longer get to experience it. So yeah, unfortunately, it is gone. Now, sticking in the same park, we have Green Lantern. Now, it's very rare to see a B&M coaster removed. There have not been very many of these. I think Jewel and Dragons over in Universal and maybe one other. Everything else has either been retracked or is still operational, but Green Lantern unfortunately is gone and it is being completely demolished and scrapped. It is not being relocated. Now, this was a standing coaster, and although I personally did not get to experience it, I have heard that it was not the most comfortable ride. I don't know if that was just its age or if it was just standing coasters. As I've said previously in other videos, the recent Pipeline coaster at SeaWorld takes standing coasters to a completely different level, and they're finally enjoyable, but previously they were not the best experiences. Nonetheless, this park has decided to scrap this along with quite a few other attractions, and you ain't getting on it anymore. Now, moving a bit closer to home, we have an attraction at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which wasn't the most thrilling attraction by any stretch of the imagination, but it's an attraction that had been with us since the 60s, and that was the Grand Prix. Now, on the face of it, this is a fairly simple car attraction. You know, it's just, originally it was a petrol-powered car attraction, and then laterally it was an electric-powered attraction. It wasn't the most reliable thing, to be fair, and the park did decide to give it a send-off this year, unlike Great Adventure, who just closed things. So, you know, it is sad to see these attractions go, but unfortunately everything has a kind of shelf life. What I would say is that the park has claimed that they've got something new coming, something big. And, you know, whilst Blackpool Pleasure Beach is a park that has steeped in nostalgia, they cannot live on nostalgia alone, and they do need to put new attractions in. So much though it's disappointing to see any attraction go, and I know this was not the most thrilling attraction, there's certainly people who are sad to see it leave. But yeah, they've wasted no time, and it's demolished already. Now, there's a couple of manufacturers that are no longer with us, and therefore their attractions are becoming harder and harder to find. Aerodynamics is one of them, but another manufacturer is Schwarzkopf. Now, they made a coaster over in Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay, called Scorpion. Now, I was fortunate enough to get on this ride at the start of this year, and I did capture a POV of it up on the channel, but midway through this year, they announced that the attraction is being removed. So, again, not the most thrilling coaster, but it was an inverting coaster and a family coaster, so potentially for a lot of people, this was their first time going upside down. As I say, they haven't yet announced what is replacing it, but it's gone. Now, one that kind of is a weird one, because the park haven't officially said this is closed, although it has been closed for most, if not all of this year, is Formula Rossa. Now, this was the fastest coaster whilst it was operational, and yeah, it's been closed all year. Bits of it have been removed. Now, it's unclear whether this is they're changing parts of it. There's some rumours floating around that there was an incident on the ride that the park has kind of kept hush-hush, but you know, I don't know what that is and if there's any truth to that. Nonetheless, as it stands right now, this attraction is not operational and may never come back. Right, we're about halfway through this list now, so I'd love to know which of these attractions you've been on, which of these you were hoping to get on and now sadly cannot, and whether you think this is a good thing or a bad thing that parks are removing these attractions. As I say, in many cases it is positive in terms of it is to bring in something new and better. Unfortunately, sometimes these attractions are very close to people's hearts and therefore a removal is painful. Let's find out the last five, shall we? So the next one on the list is La Vibora. Now, this is an Intamin Swiss Bob ride. There aren't very many of these. I think when I looked on RCDB, there was 6 Intamin and 5 Mack bobsleigh rides. So they're not the most common attraction, and I guess in a way that means every time one is lost, then we're getting less and less of these. and it probably won't be too long until it's difficult to experience these anywhere in the world. But this one, well, it's moved around a little bit, but it was laterally situated at Six Flags Over Texas. Yeah, it's interesting. From what I've heard, the trains that were on it towards the end were trains that came from the Bob at Efteling, so another version of this ride that closed in 2019 to make way for Maxim Ritz. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder to get on a bobsleigh ride these days. Disney parks are all known for having Space Mountain attractions, and they vary quite significantly. The one over in Orlando is kind of like a single file train where everybody sits and, you know, there's no inversions. The one in Paris is kind of two abreast and you have over-the-shoulder restraints, and it does have inversions. Well, the version that was in Tokyo is closed, and it's been closed to be replaced with a new version of this attraction, a much more, certainly from the outside, a much more kind of modern, futuristic looking Space Mountain. Interestingly, they're building this directly behind where the old one was, and they've started construction of the new one. I'm not quite sure why they've closed this one already. I'm sure there's perfectly good reasons for it, but I think we're still a couple of years. I don't think it's 2025, it's probably 2026 that the new one opens. Could be wrong on that, but it does feel like they've closed this one a little bit early. I mean, I appreciate they need time to demolish it, clear the ground and get it all ready and stuff, but yeah, sadly, it's a Space Mountain you cannot get on anymore. I'm going to keep going back to Six Flags Great Adventure because they have pretty much butchered their lineup for 2024, and the next one is Zumanjaro. Now, it's no surprise that this is going because this was a set of 3 drop towers that were attached to the top hat of Kingda Ka. So obviously if Kingda Ka is going, well, you can't really leave Zumanjaro behind. However, it was the tallest drop tower in the world. Well, it ain't anymore because it is being removed. So I guess, do you call that 3 rides? Nonetheless, Zumanjaro is gone. I got a strange little one closer to home, not particularly in a theme park, actually. It's actually in Cadbury World, down south. Well, south for me, maybe not for you guys. And that was Cadabra. Now, this was a cute little dark ride, family attraction. Been on it in the past. It was just this little car that kind of bounced along through basically some scenery. It was removed this year to be replaced with a trackless dark ride. Now, on the face of it, you think, oh, that's an upgrade. That's new technology, blah, blah, blah. 2 strange things though. First of all, it was built beside Cadabra, so one day Cadabra shut and the next day the new one opened. So there's a question mark of why didn't you keep both of the attractions? I don't know if they have plans for Cadabra, that space. Maybe they have, but it seems like they could have kept the 2 of them running. Because the second thing, and I've not experienced this firsthand yet, is that the feedback on the new attraction has not been the most positive. It seems to be very, very short. And not an upgrade in any shape or form. But nonetheless, despite the fact this is in not a theme park, it's another little attraction that you ain't getting on anymore. Now the final attraction I've got is yet again in Six Flags Great Adventure, and that is the Parachute Training Centre. Now this is kind of an attraction that is getting harder and harder to find. So it's an Intamin attraction. Basically, it sort of drags you up in these parachutes and then drops you. Now there are still some versions of this. They are different now though, so this is like the original version of that attraction. A newer version would be the one that, for example, is over in Disneyland Paris, where you've got the seats kind of, I think it's 4 facing each side, takes you up and drops you. This one looks like it actually had a genuine parachute. The new one has kind of more like a fake parachute style and it's kind of dropped. This did look like it actually had a parachute that kind of opened up and then collapsed and stuff, which would be kind of cool, and I think the seating arrangement was very different. Now, it's sat SBNO for quite some time at Six Flags Great Adventure, but yeah, this year, as part of that mass culling that they are doing, this ride has been confirmed to be removed. Well, there's 10 attractions that are no longer with us, and it is always sad to see some attractions go. But if you want to know what's coming in 2025, make sure you check out this video up here.